Welcome to our next video that we will be creating. This one will be done again with Flexbox in mind. I always prefer using Flexbox, especially for beginners. This is really just layout design. That's all what we are focusing on, is to get into layout design itself. Okay, so first of all, let's just have a look at how we're going to organize our files. I'll be using Visual Studios for this video specifically. I always prefer using Visual Studios. So over here we do have our folder already open. You'll notice that there I have my images as well as the framework itself. If you want to create your own, you just go File, Open. Let's have a look here, and then we click on this file, the images, and then we have also the framework that I just showed you guys. We will be going to the referencing file every now and then. Okay, so let's just get started. We'll first off just go and create a new HTML file in Visual Studios. So I click over there, just say new file, type index.html. I always start off just with index, and I'm just going to immediately also create my CSS file. So styles.css. Okay, awesome stuff. So automatically we have both of it already active. There's a nice shortcut way. I believe it's Control Enter. There we go, and then we can just click HTML sample, and automatically everything pops up. So just Control space, and then this will pop up for you. You just click HTML sample, and there you have it. You can remove a bunch of stuff. If you're not familiar with this, I would actually highly recommend first going through some HTML videos just to understand the sort of like basics. The stuff I remove, you don't have to remove. It's just I remove everything that's not really relevant to this video. Okay. So in our link relationship, we just have to change our hyperlink reference to styles.css, otherwise it won't work. Remember, your link relationship has to be style sheet for it to actually understand that it's working with a style sheet at the moment. So you'll notice our href is styles.css, which just relates to the CSS file that we just created. Okay, so here again is our reference image. Every now and then I'm just going to pop it up just so that we can remember what we are working with. Okay, so right at the top we have our header, and then our middle ground will have like some main content or just a main. We'll actually be using just like the normal photo editor for this. So I like to start off, I always use red, by the way. It's just easier to see on most backgrounds, because it's not really that I will be using red very often in designs itself. Okay, so that area over there, we're going to just call it our header. I'm basically creating my classes here before I even get into the HTML and CSS. I highly recommend doing this. It makes your sort of like thought process a lot easier, and you don't have to like think about this stuff while you're actually coding. So header, navigation, and then contact. Okay, obviously I'm writing very ugly, but that's completely fine. It's just so that we understand our reference. Okay, awesome. So the header is going to be the parent tag, the nav will be one of the childs, and then also the contact will be the other child that we have in there. So the header will have to apply the Flexbox property to. Then here we'll have our main content. That will just be called content, or you can call it article or whatever. And then the other side is just our hero image. Okay. We always just call it our hero image, but you can call it whatever you want. In this case, it's a train. By the way, that's how that start relates to it. Yeah. We do want to emphasize this text here on the left, so we're going to make it nice and big. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So that'll just be H1 text. The other will be paragraph text, and then the button will just be, a join button. We don't really have to call it anything else besides that. Cool. Then we can jump into our HTML now. First, I like to just create all the classes, sort of like one by one. I go through creating every class. We'll start off with just creating the header. By the way, you can actually type header here. You don't have to create a div for this. I prefer using divs because it just makes it a lot easier for me to be able to have full control over what I do. Okay, next up, we'll just go and we'll create our nav class. Okay, so that'll be the first child, right, of the header, and then also just the contact button. So again, we just say div class contact, and there we have our buttons. You don't have to add these like spacing that I do. This just really helps me for my own indentation. Okay, so now we have to create the 4 links, which is home, trails, about, and merchandise. We don't have to give them classes. You can if you feel like that's going to make it easier for yourself, but you don't have to actually give them classes. You can just type in the link immediately. So href index.html, and this will just call home. Okay. This is the only link that will actually work, by the way. All of the others are not really going to work. So that's the home button. We can just copy and paste it a few times. This will be trails, and then the others is the about, and then we have the merchandise. Okay, so you'll notice that I haven't actually ran anything by now. It's maybe a good idea to, over here, you probably want to open up your website just to see that you haven't made any syntax errors. That happens actually quite often. So it's good to just run your website before you continue doing anything else. So yeah, let's go and just check that out, how this actually looks like. So you'll notice that I'm not actually going to go and display the site necessarily here. Oh, by the way, this is just, I'm just pressing the Windows key and then the arrow directions, if you were wondering what was happening over there. Okay, so you can organize your files like this a little bit. I'm going to open it in a second. I just want to show you how you can sort of space your stuff. Obviously, the best would be to work on different size different screens, or those really ultra wide screens. That's absolutely amazing for development, by the way. It's actually better than 2 screens, if you ask me, the ultra wide ones. I only have a normal one, but that also helps me to do my recording. Okay, so we'll just open this with Live Server. If you don't have Live Server installed, it's very easy. You just go to extensions and then install it in your VS Code. Okay, so it's just Live Server. I'm running Live Server. The moment I change anything, it will automatically update. So I don't have to refresh my page, which is amazing. The only thing that I need to do is press the save button for it to actually update. So you'll notice now I'm going to add the button. And as I type contact us, and I save it, the button immediately appears in the live server. Every now and then, I'm just going to resize it so that we can actually see how the website looks full screen. Okay, today we're not focusing on making it necessarily responsive. However, Flexbox does help with responsive design. It really does. But today's website is not about creating a responsive website. It's really just being able to create the actual layout. Okay. Okay, so we can jump into our CSS now. We've pretty much created all of our first children tags, as well as our parent tag. So we're going to go and just create the parent tag header. Remember, your classes, you absolutely have to call it with a full stop. So we're just going to go and quickly create them all in CSS so that we don't have to later on create it. Sometimes I kind of like to do the stuff beforehand. Sometimes I like to do it sort of systematically, work from top to bottom. It really depends on what you're also creating. Sometimes it's better to do a full setup beforehand. Sometimes it's better to do it afterwards. Okay, just remember with your links, you have different states like link, hover, visited. So you have to create all of those. Okay, it's just so that you have full control of how your links actually interact. Okay, then we're going to go and create the contact class as well. And now we have all of them. Actually, I haven't created the button class yet, so I just have to create the button class as well. Awesome stuff. There we have all of them. Remember, you can always slow down my videos if I'm going too quickly. Yeah, cool. Everything is working fine, so let's go and just create our header. Now the thing is with Flexbox is, or just CSS in general, if you're working on stuff, you don't always know where all your borders are. Now there are some very cool plugins that you can actually get on your browsers, but for me, I've sort of like used a workaround by just adding background colors. You guys have probably seen it actually on one of my other ones, one of the other videos that I've created. So I'm just going to do that quickly. I'll just do it the first time around. The second piece, the main part, I'm actually not going to do that because it'll just slow us down. But I always find it a little bit helpful, especially when I'm also teaching this type of stuff. It's quite helpful using background colors. Okay, so that's a little bit small. So the height has to be set to 10 VH. VH, by the way, stands for viewport height, and then the width, we're going to make it 90%. Okay, it's just so there's a little bit of a gap. You'll notice that no website actually goes from left to right all the way, or at least no decent website. And just to make sure that that gap is in the center and not just on one side, but on both sides, we just say margin auto. Okay, then from here we have to apply the display property, which is where we activate the Flexbox property. So we say display flex, and automatically everything is next to each other instead of underneath each other. That's just because the flex direction automatically is set to row and not columns. So depending on how you actually want them to appear, obviously we're fine with rows, so we don't have to actually say display the display direction. Then we use align items to be able to just get everything in the center. We're going to go to nav, just call it flex 1, so that it fills up all the space. That's the flex size. We're going to give it a background color just so that we see where it stretches. So you'll see that it stretched that whole area over there. And then we're going to go justify content space around. Okay, I still have to add the display flex property over here so that it actually applies that space around to my links, but we'll get to that as we go on. Okay, then I'm going to just go and change my link colors. So first of all, just remove the underlinement. It always looks quite terrible if you have underlinements of your text. Then we're going to go and change the color. I'm going to use this sort of like dark gray that I really like, which is just 56, 56, 56, easy to remember. And that's just for the link itself, right? We're not really changing anything to it yet, like the hover and the visited. We up the size a little bit. You'll notice that I'm not using responsive fonts here. That's just because we don't care in this scenario. We don't care that much about it. In future videos, I'll show you guys how to use like responsive font sizing. PT is not the best to use for that. I mean, in many cases you can use it if you're gonna go with working with like different viewport sizes. Okay, I'm using the all selector here just to change the font to Roboto. The all selector is just the little sort of like star sign, and that just changes the fonts of everything except for the buttons for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. Okay, I'm gonna make the hover black, or actually, sorry, a gray, and then the visited black, so that we can see that the links has been visited. I mean, you don't really have to have visited, Like you can just have visited be exactly the same color as your link colors. Most of the time, that's actually what people do. Hashtag English. The context, I just wanted to fill in a little bit more space, so we're going to make it flex 1 because currently it's quite small, and we're just going to justify our content. Okay, I still need to add the display flex property to my links. I've forgotten to do it here, so I should do it now. Just go to my navigation area and then just say display flex. This will automatically space out my links a little bit, and then if we go full size we can see that. Awesome stuff. We can actually remove the background colors at this point because it's not really necessary to see that background anymore, because we can see that our spacing worked out perfectly fine, right? So at this point we really don't need those background colors anymore, and you can go and remove them if you want to. Okay, just remember that justify content also allows us to space our stuff around. So you'll see I'm using flex end so that my button stays at the end. It doesn't like float in the center somewhere. Okay, got rid of those backgrounds. Let's go have a look. There we go. That looks pretty much exactly like our sample site. So I just need to fix that button because the button is not looking quite right. By the way, if you guys want me to actually see how I create these UIs, you guys are more than welcome to just comment in the video. Always, you know, I like if there's any sort of like comments, anything like that, or you know, liking or subscribing. I like to create these UIs as well. Sometimes especially for these type of videos, I'll just use something that I get on Beyond, but also many times for my customers, of course, or clients, I need to create my own, you know, UIs. So if you guys want to see that, I can always create a video with that. So I'm just going through creating my button here, sort of like playing around a little bit. You'll notice that I had to add the font family here because again, it doesn't actually work if you don't. Font weighting just 400, that just makes it a little bit thicker, a little bit more bold. The font size is 16 pt, again, nice and big. Border style solid, that just gives it the solid line instead of like having it dashed or not having a border at all. Border width is 4 pixels. Okay. And then the overall width is again VW. Okay, so I'm making it 15 VW so it stretches, but I actually wanted to have a minimum width so it's at a certain point it doesn't actually go smaller than that. I mean, I could have made it more than 120 so that the contact us doesn't pop up underneath. Let's go and just add some padding. I'm using 1.5%. I think that's more than enough. You'll notice now, there we go, that's looking fresh. Cool. I'm using this sort of like olive green because that's our accent color, just if you were interested in. You'll notice that if I make the border with 3 pixels, it doesn't actually work fine. Also, we can't actually see that olive green then, so that's why I'm using 4 pixels over there instead of 3 pixels. Okay, awesome. So that's pretty much all done for the header. I'm just going to go and add a comment at the top. So in CS, it's just I think it's a / and then just your little star sign. I don't know if that's a forward or a backslash. I have no idea which one is which. So I just added to the center. You'll notice I don't add it inside my CSS itself, just because it's a lot easier to then actually see it. Because sometimes within the code itself, depending on your color schemes that you're using, it's actually quite hard to find your comments. I didn't do a lot of comments overall, actually. I think that's pretty much the only comments that I made in my whole site. So let's go and do our next session, which is the main, right? So we have to go and create a div class for the main section first. So we're just going to call it main. Inside the main, let's just have a look at our reference quickly. Okay, awesome. Inside the main, we have our content. Inside the content, we'll have the H1, the paragraph tag, and then also our join button. Okay, so I don't have to create a class for H1, right? Because it's already a tag on its own. If I had multiple H1s and multiple paragraph tags, then you might want to create a class. But in this scenario, it's not necessary. We do want to make sure that our button is still inside the content, so that it's also seen as a child of the context section. So obviously the content is a child of the main, but the button is a child of the content. I actually sometimes like to call them child tags, so instead of calling it div main, I call it div class parent 1, parent 2, and so forth. Okay, we're gonna go and just insert our hero image here. And then our source. It should actually, like most of the time it picks up by itself, but if you do type images, which is the folder it's inside, then you should be able to immediately just click on it. Okay, and there we have our photo. Just by the way, photos are very strange with sizing, so it's always super annoying when you have images. So I always recommend sort of like doing everything before you add the photo. I probably should have done it here as well, just because the photo itself just messes up a lot of our coding. Okay, so let's start off with just creating the main. Okay. So the main we have to set to 90% width. So it fills in all of that space. So we're going to go height 90%, VH, width 90% as well. But this, sorry, I'm actually doing it 85, making it a little bit thinner so that it lines up a little bit better with our home pages. Like I said, the photo is sort of like messing up all my sizing. I really should have just added it afterwards. Just go margin auto. So I'm just going to go through everything. Eventually the photo will display fine. But yeah, it can actually confuse first-time designers because the photo is like messing up your code basically, because I haven't set a sizing to my image yet. So it's always good to just add the photos afterwards, or immediately just give the photo a sort of like smaller size, and then you can like play around with it. You can actually see that I'm having a bit of trouble here. So I'm aligning my items in the center. I applied the display flex property to the main, just remember that. Let's go and just create all of our child tags here. Just the hero image as well. Most of the time with photos you want it to have a container as well as the the tag itself, so you'll have an actual parent container for the image. Okay, we're going to make the image flex 3 and the context flex 1. Okay, remember it works with ratios, so basically it's going to be, the content is going to be 1/4 and the year is going to be 3/4 of the width that we created. Okay, there we go. So that you'll notice that the moment that I added the sizing to the photo, all the code sort of like makes sense. It's starting to look how we wanted it to look like, and there's no sort of like weird interaction anymore. Okay, so all of that is looking a lot better. Our flex elements are working perfectly fine, and it's very close to what we want. There's some sizing, especially with the text, that we want to just fix up. Okay, So you'll notice there with the line items that we want it to be in the center. We don't want it to sort of like float at the top. Okay, let's go and just fix the little gap there between the text and the photo. Okay, awesome stuff. Accidentally closed my CSS there for a reason. Okay, there we go, and I've got a bit of more of a gap over there, and everything is sort of like focused in its own ways now. Like nothing is really fighting for attention. We just need to up the size of the text. Let's just go margin top, minus it a little bit so it's a little bit higher. Okay, so you'll notice that if it's a bit higher, that it just looks slightly better. Like it's not perfect in the center. Yeah, it just looks slightly better. Okay, so let's go and just fix our font. We're gonna go and just play with font sizes here. It might not be the size that we actually go with. Now, I kind of like the size, but the spacing is a bit awkward. Maybe let's just go through all the steps, and then we'll give it a minimum width later on, and then the font sizing will be like fine. Okay, so let's just reduce the font size a bit. Okay, that's starting to sort of look like how I want it to be. Let's go paragraph text. I mean, the paragraph text, you can actually keep it as default if it's not like super important information. However, if it's some of your main content information, you want to do it like 14 pt or even more. This is very sort of like descriptive text, so it's not really important, but it could be that it is important text, and I would actually recommend going a bit bigger than that. So let's give that section a minimum width now, the context section. There we go. Now the text looks better. We can up the size, and all of that information looks a lot better and cleaner now. There, awesome stuff. Okay, so the next thing that we want to do is we want to just fix that join now, the button. We can actually, sorry, let's just fix the image first. Yeah, the image needs that minimum width as well. We'll get to the button now. Okay, so the problem with having two elements where they have minimum width is that they're actually not going to be displayed correctly next to each other, right? So we can use flex wrap that when they don't meet that minimum width requirement, that they actually wrap around. That's a little bit of a responsiveness, a little bit, let's call it a bonus content, because I did say I'm not going to do responsiveness in this video, but I wanted to just show you how that interaction works. And it's always nice to be able to do that, especially if you're making like mobile friendly sites. But we're going to go into responsiveness in the next video. So, you know, remember to actually subscribe so that you can see those type of videos. Okay, always smashing the like button is always welcome. Okay, let's go just copy the button, and then we're just going to change it so it doesn't look exactly the same, almost like an inverse version of the other one. Okay, so the border color, I can remove, maybe I can just keep it there, that's actually fine. Yeah, I shouldn't delete it. Okay, or should I? No, let's just keep it there. Let's go color, change the text to white. Okay, there we go. That's pretty much perfect. Yeah, awesome. I could have made it, like, given it a little bit more padding, but I'm actually quite happy with that. I think it came out looking quite nice. We can maybe change that text size. Let's have a look at our reference photo. There we go. This is the final version. I think this looks absolutely fantastic. Okay, and there we have it. Awesome. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. I like to make plenty of these videos in the future. I try to keep them under half an hour. This one was just about half an hour. And I hope I see you guys next time. Remember to comment, subscribe, whatever you want to see next. And I'll try to work it into my schedule. Awesome. Have a lovely day, everyone. Cheers.